How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 6. Right now we're following Rena. Apparently this chapter is going to introduce a new way of jumping back and forth between which character we're following. So the white text is just general and Keiichi. The pink text seems to be if we're following Rena. As this is her chapter, and it does make sense, for the possibility of following the character that the chapter is about. Obviously, we didn't do that for Mion. Obviously, we didn't do that for Sotoko or Rika. But we did follow Shion, which gave us a lot of background on Mion, and just a little bit more background at times through tips on Sotoko. So, this method works. I like it. We'll see how this goes, and right now we're kind of seeing a side of Rena. We're seeing her weaker side, I guess you could say. We're seeing her personality not totally together here, and we're seeing that, yes, for surezies, that giggly fun time personality that she has is a little fake in a way. She wants to be happy, but why? Like there's a hidden vendetta of some sort. So let's read on as she just got here to the damn construction site. A mountain of trash loomed before me. I parked my bicycle and walked down the mountain of trash and scrap. This place is my castle. It would be incredible if anyone else came to this mountain of trash. I've come here many times and I usually stay for a long while, but I've never seen anybody walk by. This place is the village's blind spot. I heard that many people came here all the time during the dam wars, but it was abandoned after that. The villagers no longer need to come here, and some people even forgot about it entirely. It seems like they dump trash here at midnight, but I've never seen a truck actually dumping trash, at least. If they dumped new trash more often, it'd give me more time to kill. But it looks like it's not gonna happen for a while. I walked down the slope of the trash pile all the way down to the bottom and headed behind another pile. Nobody ever comes here. I've come here many times, and I usually stay for a long while, but nobody has ever come to mess up this place. Not even the other kids from my school come here. They all believe that the arm of the manager of the construction site is buried somewhere in the trash piles, and they also believe the whole place is haunted. They told me that a ghost with one arm still wanders around here looking for his missing limb. Sadly, I haven't seen the ghost either. Why is that a sad thing? I'm not scared. In fact, I'd rather like to meet him. I wouldn't mind helping him find his arm. If he's feeling lonely, I'd want him to be my conversation partner. There's a station wagon buried in the trash pile, really. It doesn't have tires, but other than that, it still looks like a station wagon. This station wagon is my secret hideout. Unfortunately, the sliding door and rear doors don't open. So whenever I want to get in, I have to enter the car from the passenger seat and crawl into the back from there. Of course, I take off my shoes at the passenger seat. Interesting. When you look at it from the outside, it's just a dirty abandoned car. But on the inside, it's nice and clean, because I had swept it out and decorated a little. That took me a long time. The back seats are lying flat because I want to have as much space as possible. I found a mattress in the trash pile and put it in that space instead. It was a bit dirty, so I brought a bed sheet from home and covered the mattress with it. I put my favorite cushions on top, and with that, it turned into a perfect bed. I put cushions and stuffed animals everywhere. And that's not all, look at this! Haha, I have a bunch of sweets here too. I have a bag of fruit candy in 4 different colors and some cookies, but they're going bad. I'll have to throw them away. My bear-shaped water bottle was empty. When I come here to spend time on Sundays, I usually bring this water bottle with some sweetened tea in it. I have a box of tissues, a flashlight, extra batteries, and other daily necessities in here. I also have a few books to read in order to kill some time while I'm at it. And I have this. What do you think this is? Look, ta-da! My hideout is suddenly lit up, thanks to the table lamp. There's an electric outlet on the side of an old nearby construction office. I thought they'd have cut the power years ago, but to my surprise, I was wrong. Electricity is still being supplied to the outlet. When I found tons of extension cords, I came up with the idea to connect them all and make the electricity come all the way to my hideout. Now I can spend time here comfortably with some sweets, books, and lights. If I wanted to, I might be able to spend a night here, but I may catch a cold since it gets very cold at night. Haha. See? This is a very nice hideout, isn't it? At first I thought somebody would find it and mess with it, but that hasn't happened so far. That's because nobody comes here, and everybody forgot about this place. That's how this place became my perfect secret hideout. Fortunately, I ate so much today that I'm still full. I can tell them that I was playing with my friend at her house and ate dinner there. I'm going to stay here for a while and relax, and I'm going to treat myself. I loved the water gun battle yesterday. My heart had been pounding when I fought one-on-one with Keiichi-kun. I also had great fun at Agelmore today. I'd never experienced such a crazy game with so many people in my life. I was still feeling the after effects, and I was sure that I'd have a dream about it tonight. That was why I wanted to bask in these happy feelings. That was why I'm going to treat myself in here. I should take off my shoes and stretch my toes. I should cherish the time when I can be myself. Once I took off my shoes, I felt so relaxed that I didn't want to put them on again. I played all day today and I was very tired. The treasure hunt could wait. As it got darker, the light on the table lamp became encouraging. It really was getting dark faster than usual. All of a sudden, I heard the sound of raindrops hitting the roof of the car. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. The interval between drops got shorter and shorter. When it became a continuous sound, I began to hear thunder. Even though it was raining heavily, it remained very quiet inside the car, making me feel like I was in a different world. And it's my castle, after all. I felt a bit cold, so I unfolded my big blanket and hid under it. I'm here alone, under the warm blanket that has my scent. Even though nobody knew where I was at the moment and I feel like I was left alone in the heavy rain, I still feel secure and free from anxiety for some reason. I felt like this heavy rain was keeping my enemies away from my castle. I liked it that way. This place is full of small happiness. It's full of my favorite things, and that's why I'm happy whenever I'm here. When I put another blanket over me, I felt as warm as if I were in bed. I listened to the soothing sounds of raindrops hitting the scrap iron in the trash heaps, and it made me feel sleepy. This is a castle of trash. This trash came here because nobody wanted it. This is where it lives. This is a country where unwanted refuse lives together. I felt like I fit in here, but at the same time, I knew it was just a temporary place for me, and there's somewhere I had to go back to. No, I shouldn't think about things like that. Whenever I realize that I don't belong here, I remember I'm in the middle of a very dirty pile of trash. I should just doze off for a little bit longer. Thinking is poisonous. I wanted to keep myself out of that poison so that the kind Rena within me could stay pure. A little bit longer. Just a little bit longer, and I closed my eyes. It sort of seems like she doesn't want to go home. Interesting, huh? I wonder why. She wants to retain the happy personality inside of her. Alright, we're gonna get some background here. My mother was a very busy woman. The harder she worked, the more her work was valued, and she kept getting promoted. She sought to go higher and higher, she was always shining, and she was my hero. My mother started her career as a fashion designer at a small clothing factory in Okinomiya. My father was a designer too. They met through their jobs and soon got married. They lived in a small apartment in Okinomiya. They moved into my grandma's house, our current house in Hinamizawa, when she got pregnant with me. We lived there until right before I went to elementary school. Now that I think about it, that was the happiest time of my life. I felt happy every day and believed without a doubt that tomorrow would be the same. I was so happy that I took it for granted and didn't even feel the happiness. I really did feel happy every day. I was small at the time and didn't really understand what was going on, but it seemed like the company my parents were working for was having financial difficulties. So my mother and a few other young designers started talking about leaving the company and going independent. After many things happened and the situation grew complicated, they got an offer to work at a big design firm in Ibaraki, and they took the offer. At the time, I heard my mother saying many difficult words like limited partnership and business alliance, but in short, what she wanted to do was move to Ibaraki. My mother and her peers were hired because their talent and experience made them immediate assets at their new company. However, my father wasn't one of them. Unfortunately, my father wasn't as talented as my mother was, so moving to Ibaraki meant that my father had to give up being a fashion designer. My mother's new company had high expectations of her talent and promised her a responsible project. She didn't want to waste her growing talent and passion by living in a rural town like Hinamizawa, so my mother convinced my father to quit his job and move to Ibaraki to support her and to help her build her career. Back then, moving meant that I had to say goodbye to my close friends. I didn't want to move, and I kept crying about it. After we moved to Ibaraki, my mother was a big success. Not only did she have great leadership skills, but she was full of energy, and I believe she made the best use of her talents to succeed. She came home late every night and barely had any days off. When she had a big project, she often stayed entire nights at her office. But when she came home, she always looked fulfilled and wore a happy smile that she had never worn when she was in Hinamizawa. She was shining, and I remember I always wanted to shine like her when I grew up. On the other hand, my father wasn't doing so well. He couldn't find a job as a fashion designer, so he took a clerical job at a small company, but he kept changing positions. He couldn't use the experience that he had cultivated, and it was very hard for him. But he was very understanding. He started to take care of things around the house for my mother, who got busier and busier, having one project after another. He cleaned the house, did the laundry, and came to my school events. Look, there's nothing wrong with being a house husband, alright? It might be a little, hard to get used to after, you were maybe the bread maker or one of the bread makers, but it's totally acceptable. Like, you can find happiness in raising the family, or putting more effort in towards taking care of the house. However, he couldn't cook. He did cook rice, but always bought side dishes from a grocery store. We ate dinner without my mother more and more often. I guess she's busy again. Every time I said that, he always told me, "Your mother is working very hard. So, let's support her, Rena." That was what he always told me. I decided to help my father with the cooking. I thought it was a good idea to learn how to cook, since he wasn't good at it. Whenever my mother cooked, I helped her and tried to learn how to cook from her. She apologized for not having enough time to cook for us, but she was happy that I was learning. I think I wrote in my school yearbook that I wanted to be a clothing designer in the future, just like my mother. But apparently I lacked my mother's exceptional sense of style. She used to tell me, taste is something that you're born with, not something that you cultivate. I remember I was discouraged to be a designer because of that. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. That was why I decided to reach her by getting better at things she wasn't so good at instead of trying to be like her. I wanted to be good not only at cooking, but also at doing things around the house such as cleaning, doing the laundry, and grocery shopping. I remember my father was really happy that I did all that for him because he wasn't good at it at all. Ain't that right, fellas? We suck at this shit. We couldn't find a job and spent a lot of time at home, so he seemed to enjoy spending time doing the housework with his daughter more than anything. I started to become better and better at filling in for my mother, and she started to get too busy to do any of the housework at all, and she moved on to a more responsible position at her job. She took me out to many places as if to compensate for leaving me alone all the time. She used to say, "Let's go eat something delicious without telling your father," and took me out to a restaurant. She took me to high-class restaurants and amusement parks. Sometimes it was only me and my mother. Sometimes it was with her friends from work. She took me to the beach, or to a beach barbecue one summer with some friends. I was introduced as her daughter and every one of them pampered me. I still remember there was this one guy who particularly doted on me. He was a good-looking young man. I called him Uncle once and he got mad at me, who was nicely tanned with dyed brown hair. This young man often came with us when we went out. Oh, shit. When my mother took me somewhere, she usually made several phone calls for her work during the day, and sometimes she took me out to a place where she could also do her work at the same time. So I didn't feel awkward when people from her work came with us. But I always preferred to be alone with her, so I was happier when we could do that. One day she took me to a very high-end part of town. Of course, she always spoiled me whenever she went out or when we went out. She bought me things and let me eat whatever I wanted. But she especially spoiled me on that day. She took me to many expensive-looking boutiques, and accessory stores. She was about to buy me something, but I told her not to get it because it didn't look good on me. Without hesitation, she bought it anyway. I remember that there were many zeros on the price tag. On that day, I realized my mother's design work had made her a very successful woman, and she was earning a lot of money. We took a break at a ridiculously expensive-looking restaurant that probably charged 1,000 yen for a glass of orange juice. My mother clapped her hands and spoke to me with a smile on her face. She asked, "Rena, would you like to make your dream come true?" When I was in kindergarten, my teacher gave students a topic to draw a picture of. The topic was my dream, and I drew myself eating a mountain of fruit parfait all by myself. What my mother meant to say was that she was going to make that dream come true for me. It was a normal day. It wasn't my birthday or anything. But since my mother always spoiled me when we went out together, I didn't feel awkward about it at all, and I accepted her offer with a happy smile. There were 5 or 6 of fruit parfaits in front of me. I remember it looked exactly like the world I drew, and I felt like I was floating in that dream world. It was too much for us to finish, but we dug our spoons into it as if we were playing in the mud, and we really enjoyed eating it together. It was my first time to experience getting full by eating only fruit parfaits, and I remember I was very happy. I enjoyed tasting the happiness and chatting with my mother.
レイナちゃん、この間映画とお食事に行った時、一緒だった人のことを覚えてる？
Sorry, I was getting a drink. Yeah, fuck.
秋人おじさんだっけ？
Yep, here we go.
お兄さんって呼ばないとぶたれる。
レイナちゃんは秋人さんのこと好き？
嫌い。いつもレイナのことからかうもん。
それは大好きだからちょっかいを出してるのよ。バーベキューの時はとっても仲良くしてたじゃない。
たまには仲良しかな？かな？
My mother laughed. I didn't know why she brought up the subject, but I didn't really pay attention to it because I was too young. Now that I think about it, she was breaking the news. I just didn't notice it.
ねえ、レイナちゃんはお母さんとお父さんと
You cannot... Okay, fucking everybody that's watching, if you're a parent or a future parent or whatever, you do not do that. Like, obviously sign of separation here, but you can't do that. You cannot do that to your child, especially when they're that young or ever. That is just so unfair. You cannot do that. I don't know how to explain it, but you really just cannot do that shit.
お母さん。
It wasn't that I hated my father or anything, but I thought giving her that answer was appropriate after she spoiled me so much.
もしもお母さんとお父さんが別々のお家に住むことになったら、レイナはどっちのお家に住みたい？
Uh-oh, there goes our music.
お母さんね、お父さんと別れて秋人おじさんと結婚しようと思うの。
At that time, my mother was a very successful woman. I didn't know this at the time, but she was drafted by a headhunter to work at a bigger company, where she was promoted to a higher and more responsible position, one where she could bring out the most of her talent. Of course, the position wasn't the only thing she gained. Compared to my father's low salary, my mother was earning enough money to support a family of 3 and still have some left over. I kind of realized it from the way she spent money. The greater a position she achieved, the more she spent time with people at her level. All of them were bright and talented. Compared to them, my father might have looked unattractive to her. I liked Uncle Akihito, but I liked him as one of my mother's friends, not in the same way I liked my father. I liked my father and mother equally, so it was very shocking to me that my mother wanted to divorce him. I felt as if the ground below me was beginning to crack. That expression, I realized, actually fit my situation very well. I had to choose which side of the cracked ground I wanted to stand on. My mother told me to live with her at her new house. Her new house meant the house Uncle Akihito lived in. Excuse me, I thought a house was a sanctuary for a family. I believed that a house was a holy place where strangers couldn't easily enter. That was why I couldn't believe her. How could she just let a stranger invade such a holy place so easily? Why do you hate my father? My mother looked down and didn't answer. I asked her another question. Why can't you stay with my father? I think that was the hardest and the most heartbreaking of all questions for my mother to answer. In short, my mother had cheated on him. She loved another man who was more attractive than my father. It was just that and nothing more. I knew more than anybody that it wasn't my father's fault. First of all, he decided to move from Hinamizawa to support my mother as much as he could. For him, nothing good had come from that. Actually, I think he had a very tough time since we moved to Ibaraki. But he volunteered to be her support and tried very hard to do that. I thought my mother appreciated his support. Yeah, kind of siding with the father on this one. Fuck this bitch. So, I took her decision as a betrayal. I told her that I disagreed with everything, including their divorce. I said it very loudly and made everybody in the store jump. Hell yeah, Rena, you fucking do it. Sure, continue your relationship with Uncle Akihito, but don't divorce my father. I feel bad for him. I feel terrible for him. He has been doing nothing but support you patiently this whole time. How could you do such a cruel thing to him? I screamed as loud as I could. Then my mother answered, "It's too late." Fucking bullshit, man. I hate people who cheat, just straight up. That's such horseshit. Why? You haven't talked with my father about this, have you? It's not too late.
お母さんね、妊娠してるの。
Okay. Well, maybe it is too late. Wow. What the fuck? Seriously. What the fuck? I don't know whether my mother actually told him about the divorce in person. A middle-aged woman who called herself a lawyer came to the house several times to talk to my father on my mother's behalf. She sometimes called him too. My father begged the lawyer to let him speak directly to my mother many times, but it never happened. I could tell by the way they talked that he had no clue when my mother told him she wanted a divorce. Well, again, I'm not even sure if she told him in person. The lawyer told him not to meet my mother, not to call her at work, and many other things too. To top it all off, she told him not to see my mother ever again. God damn. He wanted to talk to her. He called some of their mutual friends, but he only found out the name of the guy she was having an affair with and nothing more. I need an "and" there. Excuse me. He asked me, "Do you know the guy?" I told him I do. I also told him that he was a funny guy and had given me candy many times. I'll never forget how he looked when I told him that. He hit me for the first time. He hit me so hard that his handprint stayed on my cheek for a while. Then he fell on the floor and cried loudly. And then I started to cry too. I didn't cry because he hit me. Uncle Akihito was kind to me, so I liked him and talked to him out of courtesy. No, that wasn't it. Girls had to be kind to everybody. That's what I thought. But I was wrong. I learned in this world that there are people you should be nice to and enemies you shouldn't be nice to. The enemies are the ones who would destroy my life with their very existence. Whether they mean to harm me or not doesn't matter. They're like weeds growing in a flower bed. Dandelions are innocent, but they take all of the nutrition for the tulips from the soil, and that's why we have to pull them out. The dandelions did nothing wrong, but they're the enemy. Enemies are bad people. That guy was a bad person. I shouldn't have accepted him. I should have rejected him with everything I had. By doing so, I might have been able to disrupt the relationship. By doing so, I might have been able to make my mother feel like their relationship was not going to work. If I tried to do so, my parents wouldn't have had to break it. No, they still would have. In some sort of way, they would have. My father and I cried together, but we cried for different reasons. He must have cried because it happened so fast and it didn't make any sense to him. I cried because I regretted that I let it happen when I had the chance to prevent it. My father stroked my cheek and opened his mouth to apologize, but he couldn't speak and just cried with me. One day, the lawyer let me see my mother. My mother asked me to live with her at her house again. I didn't know what to say, so I just kept looking down and listened to her apologies. My father knew that I was going to see my mother on that day, so he handed me a letter and told me to give it to her. I don't know what he wrote in that letter, but for some reason I was able to imagine what kind of things he wrote when I felt it through the envelope. After all, the letter inside the envelope had a rough surface. He must have been crying while writing the letter, and his tears made the letter all wrinkled when it dried. My mother took the letter from me, told me that she'd read it later, and was about to put it in her bag. I stopped her and told her to read it there. I wanted to see how she was going to take the last words that my father had left to her. But my mother didn't read it. She told me she wanted to read it alone later, and she put it in her bag. At that time, I realized. No, it was more than that. I should say, I knew because it was so obvious. I knew that my mother was lying. She had no intention of reading my father's letter. She was going to throw it away after I was gone, but she lied just because she wanted to seem like a nice person in front of me. The slight curl in her eyebrows and lips told me that more clearly than anything else. At that moment, I finally knew something. The guy that she was having an affair with wasn't the only bad person. My mother was also a bad person. Since that moment, the existence of my mother disappeared from my world like dry ice evaporating. I didn't have to hesitate about whom to live with anymore.
あなたの家には行きません。私の家は竜宮の家です。もうあなたとも会いたくありません。二度と呼ばないでください。
でもね、レイナ、お父さんの方に残ったらこれからの生活。
At that moment, I hated my name for the first time in my life.
私のこと気安くレイナって呼ばないでください。失礼します。さようなら。
Those were my last words to my mother. No, to the woman who used to be my mother. After that, I spent many days without feeling anything. I didn't know if the days were long or short. I didn't know which season I was living in. It was supposed to be nothing out of the ordinary, not having my mother around. But every time my father saw things that reminded him of her, like her toothbrush or teacup, or her favorite books, he shed tears, which left me frustrated. That's why I decided to completely remove her belongings from the house. I roughly threw her things into a black trash bag. I started to do so frantically. By the time I knocked down her wardrobe, threw her music box hard on the floor, and broke her mirror, my mind was already not working properly. When I try to remember what happened after that, I feel disoriented. That's because the pills the doctor gave me back then made me feel disoriented and lethargic every time I took them. It seems that dullness hit me especially hard, since every time I try to remember that time, it makes me feel disoriented and lethargic, just like the pills oh wait, hold up, we're kind of going in a circle here. I destroyed everything that smelled like my mother, but the thing I wanted to destroy the most might have been myself. Even after I threw out all of her belongings, I still couldn't stop feeling regret, and I decided to blame myself in the end. Maybe I was thinking I wanted to do damage to her reputation and successful life by destroying her daughter, destroying myself. When I was about to reach that very last resolution, Oyashiro-sama came to me. Oyashiro-sama told me to go back to Hinamizawa. Yes, all of this was because of his curse. Oyashiro-sama brought a curse upon the Ryugu family because we broke his rule and abandoned Hinamizawa. After I figured that out, everything started to make sense to me, all the crazy things that happened after my mother was gone. The curse of Oyashiro-sama did all of that to us. It was Oyashiro-sama's voice that was telling us to come back to Hinamizawa. That's right. We should have stayed in Hinamizawa. Everything went crazy because we moved. We had to go back to Hinamizawa. I started feeling disoriented again, and a dull pain ran through my head. It might be a scream from within me telling me not to push myself too hard to remember any further. The house where we used to live in Hinamizawa was still there. My grandma already passed away, and the house was the only property she had left for us. I remember that I used to live in Hinamizawa, but all I remembered was that it was a village that I used to live in until right before I went to elementary school. I remembered the atmosphere of the village too, but that was all I remembered. I forgot the streets and even the names of close friends I used to play with. The neighbors knew that the son of the deceased woman had come back divorced, but they didn't know us and we didn't know them. So it was almost like we moved to a new place. However, as far as I was concerned, it was still my hometown that I had to come back to. At first, everything was inconvenient compared to life in Ibaraki, but it was hard for both of us to adjust, and it was. But we renovated the old house and it was only me and my father. Life here seemed to make my father forget his pain from the divorce. Mi-chan was very kind to me, and I started to get used to my new life too. I did everything around the house, and we gradually went back to a time when we used to live happily. I feel like there's gonna be a huge but here, you know, like, there's something else that's happening. Anybody can live a happy life. People sometimes say that some people are born to be unhappy, but I believe that's just an excuse for people who don't even want to try. I won't give in to fate. I'll never give up trying to recapture the happy times I lost. I'm going to become happy to the point where I don't even feel the happiness anymore. I'm not going to cry anymore. I'll never cry again. I used up all my tears on that night my father hit me. The curse of Oyashiro-sama is over because we came back to Hinamizawa, so I'm going to have a happy life from now on. All of a sudden, big raindrops hit the roof of the car, and I recovered my senses. It was still raining hard. It had already gotten dark outside. The shadows the table lamp created were very dark, and it looked like as if there's nothing else around me, If I turned off this light, would everything in this world disappear? Let's find out. I turned off the light. Darkness swallowed me. But the cold air and the sound of rain didn't change a bit, and that made me realize I was still in this world. The curse of Oyashiro-sama. Did the curse of Oyashiro-sama do those crazy things to my family? Or did I convince myself it did as an excuse for myself because I didn't want to feel guilty about the divorce? Sometimes I'm not sure. Since that time, Oyashiro-sama hasn't come to me. I sometimes feel like it was a delusion I created because I was mentally ill, but he did come at that time. I'm sure about that. Am I right, Oyashiro-sama? I was unhappy after I left Hinamizawa, but I came back and I'm happy now. But where am I supposed to go now that I'm unhappy in Hinamizawa? Where?
ダメだ、レナ。不幸になったとか考えちゃいけない。私は幸せなんだ。幸せになるんだ。だから絶対に幸せになれるんだ。
Suddenly I felt that if this darkness swallowed me, I'd never be happy or be able to be happy again. I found the switch of the table lamp and turned it back on. When I looked at the clock, it was already past 11 p.m. Holy shit. I had to go home. I wouldn't have time to prepare my lunch for tomorrow. At least I'd have to set the timer on the rice cooker. It didn't look like the rain was going to stop anytime soon. I looked out the window to see the rain, but could only see my reflection. I talked to that reflection in the window. I'm so glad that my father's happy. He'd been acting like he was dead for a long time. The smile on his face is a good sign that he's regaining his former happy life. He became miserable because of me, and that's why I don't mind doing things for him until he regains his smile and we become truly happy. When I stay here alone for a while, it gives him some time to be alone with her. Plus, I don't have to fake a smile. Oh, there's somebody else in his life. But then, my reflection in the window tells me, Rena, you're such a good girl. You're kind to everybody and love them equally. You can make anybody like you. Yeah. But did you forget something? In this world, there are people you should be kind to and enemies that you have to reject with all you've got. I thought you learned that lesson. No, don't listen to her. My reflection is always mean. She always says mean things and makes fun of my worries. But she always tells me things that I can't say myself. Let's go home, Rena. To your home. Forget about the mean Rena in the mirror. I was a bit hungry by then. After all the desserts I ate, I still got hungry. I almost forgot. Rena-san bought me a shortcake. I've never had a shortcake from Angel Mort, but I bet it'll taste good. I'd have to give my thanks to Rena-san the next time I see her. Rena-san speaks in a way that makes it very clear how she grew up, but I'm sure she's a good person. And that's because she's so good to my father. I did everything I could to make my father smile, but I failed. On the other hand, Rena-san can put a big smile on his face so easily. I have to thank Rena-san. I have to thank her for cheering up my father, but I don't know why. I just don't like her perfume. Okay, maybe my baseless ass prediction from, last episode was totally off? I don't know, like it's so weird. Their names are so similar, and the way that they talk is kind of similar. I don't know, it just kind of made me think, oh, maybe there's some sort of connection here, and I just threw out an idea. Don't call me Rena is that achievement. Let's read our tips. My summer vacation picture diary. Today I went to a swimming pool with my mom. Uncle Akihito came with us too. I don't like him because he's sometimes mean to me, but he's a very kind and funny old man. He told me to call him Daddy for that day. Ugh. Because he was going to play with me at the pool like he was my daddy. My mom called him Daddy, so I did too. Uncle Akihito looked very happy and gave me a lot of money. My mom looked very happy and it made me happy too. I want to play with him again. I hope my dad can come with us next time. Yeah, that fucking sucks. He ain't coming. He definitely is not going. Premonition of rainy days. I opened the window, placed my cushion nearby, and prepared to enjoy the weather. But she came over and disrupted my peaceful evening. She always ruins my time of solitude.
幸せそうね。そっか。今日はあんたの大好きな甘いものがたくさん食べられたものね。
This girl loves sweets more than anything. I like them too, but I can't eat like she does. It'd give me heartburn if I ate the amount she ate today. She seemed to be very happy, so I'll leave her alone for a while. I've been making my favorite hot and salty food for the past few days, so she must be quite pleased today. It was a very fun day for me too. I just wanted to enjoy the memory of the excitement I felt today by sitting here quietly, enjoying the sunset. But when I looked up at the sky, I saw some thick clouds forming there. The wind was a bit cooler than usual. It might start raining soon.
大地震や大津波などの知らせとして浅瀬に普段は絶対に見かけることができない深海の魚が現れることがあるっていう話があるらしいわね。
We saw a very rare fish that dwells in deep water in the shallows today. Just as the ancient stories of sea monsters say, people hate deep-sea animals and tend to interpret them as omens of a disaster. It didn't matter if they showed up alive or dead. I said something interesting just now. Even if they showed up alive or dead, it was an omen of a disaster. Oh, it might start raining soon.
うるさいな。言われなくても分かってる。洗濯物を取り入れるわよ。
I grabbed a basket and went outside to take the laundry in. The clouds were getting darker. I normally like rain, but I didn't think I'd enjoy it today. Okay, we were following Rika, obviously, but we were following both Rikas. So this is more so confirming the fact that there's a real Rika, and then there's another Rika. A Rika that the real one is allowing to preside within her as a cover-up, but the real one can surface whenever she pleases. That's kind of what it's seeming like. But what does that all mean? What is going on with Rika? What came up there? Why are things happening the way they are?
Oh, 来た来た.
All right. Well, we're gonna save it here, as this was actually a 2-session recording session. I don't know why I divided it. Oh, that's right. I was recording this like late last night, and I was like, yeah, I need sleep. So continued it the day after, and plus with all the fucking talking, it was probably a good idea too. Yeah, this was an episode. There's a lot to unpack here. Obviously, with Rena, I don't really know what to take from everything we got out of that. It's a sad story, but we did get a lot more on her background, which is necessary since we got backgrounds on mostly everybody else of the main cast. And for Rena, we can confirm, yeah, she's got some mental issues, for sure. Like 100% has some mental issues. And that's fine and everything, but it definitely confirms that, which means we can see Rena in that light when trying to piece things together. Also, Rena is trying to be happy. She is definitely not happy. She is forcing that shit as hard as she can because something is just not right, and that seems to be Rena. Whoever the fuck she is. We got a very short description of who she was and a tip. And that was it. But I guess it's all we need for right now. Just to know that she's here and she'll play a role, and apparently she already has been. So there's also that to consider. And of course, the ending bit there with Rika. I guess we just have to keep that on the back of our minds. There's a reason why that tip was shown to us now. And I was told that this is going to be the final chapter where I can try to place my thoughts together, put all the evidence kind of circled in one big ass hole, and start digging to see if I can connect the pieces. Because in the next 2 chapters, it's all going to get revealed in some sort of manner. And whether or not I can figure it out, it's time to start thinking. So you'll be hearing predictions, probably more baseless ones, as I try to just see what's happening. Why does Rena have the name Rena? Why did she get rid of the I? You know, what is going on? What is going to happen? There's a lot of questions. Thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.